one quick thing. Let's reflect back on how the Republican Party became the Republican Party. Okay, just quick thing.
Go
So
ahead.
I'm paraphrasing. I'm
Uh-huh.
paraphrasing, and I promise you there is a reason to this whole conversation of the Republican Party.
Mhm.
Yes, the Republican Party, by definition, they don't really want a lot of involvement by said government, even though they are using the government to their advantage. But that's neither here nor there. Pineapples. Moving on. So Republicans originally, if they want to accept it, which is what old girl, their token chick, keeps trying to bring up, is that Black people were very prominent in the Republican Party at one point. Matter of fact, we technically were the Republican Party. The problem was is that it was very efficient. So what happened is that there was the Republican Party, then there was the Democratic Party, and which the Democratic Party wanted a lot of government, or at least they were more copacetic with that party. And then there was the working class, that is us. But over time, things transformed because people didn't like the whole thing with blacks having a whole party. So and I hate to say this, and hey, this is me paraphrasing. This is vague to my memory. Don't quote me. This guy, the Republican, the Democratic Party, which were a lot of heavy at that time racists, they decided to take over the Republican Party. Don't ask me how. They also, well, I believe that the way that they did it was they took, or they kind of like sweet talked people in the working class that both like that had common, I'll say it that way, that had common understanding or viewpoints of the Republican Party to work together. Because of that, they were able to pretty much gut and transform the Republican Party to what it is now. So, in history, what had happened is that the rich and the working class came together on the fact that they did not like a particular thing about the Republican Party. Maybe it was about the color of their skin, maybe not. Who's to say? Look it up. And because that working class and the rich white at that time got together, they were able to overthrow a lot of people in that party. So, guess what? Now, what does it look like? What does the Republican Party look like? It looks like the exact same thing that I'm telling you, a mixture of the rich and the mixture of the races. So, why do you think that the working class typically, usually, always sides with the Republican Party? It's because the Republican Party, that's what they did back in the day. That's what they used. That's what they used to get the majority in the first place. So they can't go back on that because history, that's what they used to get the majority in the first place.
Uh, to go over what to try to keep it because, like I said, I'm trying to keep it short. Trying to keep these short.
Yeah,
That was
I mean, I'm technically I'm done. I'm sorry.
it was that was Democratic President Franklin Roosevelt. He had won re-election based on the strength of the New Deal. So sometime it was between the 1860s and the 1936. Sorry, have some issues. Was it Roosevelt who won? Who was it that was president after? Um, sorry, because it wasn't Roosevelt. I just had it. I can't find it right now, and I'm not going to keep wasting time. Basically, it was whoever took office after JFK got assassinated. Or probably even before that. I believe it was somebody who was kind of racist, but they passed, civil rights bill, what have you, um, and it basically And even when he did it, he was quoted saying that the Democrats have lost the South forever. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when kind of the party starts switching. And you can even see a map. They have maps of the voting, and you can start to see the states that used to be red start turning blue, and vice versa. Um, so that's kind of what it was. It was because of civil rights bills, laws that were started being passed that kind of drove the party switch. And you even have people who talked about it and who were talked about the different strategies with the fact of you can no longer use the N word, but if you said urban, if you said other key phrases. If you said other key phrases, you can kind of get away with it. What's up, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sorry, keep hold for me.
Okay. Well, I can go ahead and speak on the portion about the whole situation of at one point the Republicans being a anti-slavery party, because it is in history that
okay, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. I'll be right back.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So just taking a beat, because I do want to acknowledge that I've brought up plenty of times how really and truly we should no longer just sit here and think about Republicans versus Democrats, Democrats versus Republicans, and it is for good reason. It's because there's so much history behind all of this. I mean, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you want more clarification, I did look up a source so you know that I'm not just talking at the side of my neck in anger or anything. This is off of like knowledge. So, based off of historians, Republicans, historians don't teach it, but the first Black members of Congress were Republicans. And history is not taught, but the first 23 Black congressmen were Republican. From USA Today, this is just a section. It says it is most accurate that the Republican Party formed to oppose the extension of slavery. Although up until the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, Abraham Lincoln and other Republicans pledged not to interfere with slavery in states where it already existed. And the first 23 African Americans in Congress did not belong to the Republican Party due to the GOP support of voting rights and the Democratic Party's embrace of white supremacy. Now, this is not to throw you or deter you from being on Democrat or Republican Party, because trust me, again, there is a switch at some point where the Democrats are no longer in the Democratic Party. Again, a lot of people don't know about this switch because historians don't usually teach this section. So, the idea that Reconstruction era historians hid those facts key to understanding the period is false. This is just a front and center in what we teach all the time, said Kate Masur, the professor of history in Northwestern University, who was written extensively about Reconstruction. It is not a big secret. I will say, I believe that it's somewhat still a big secret. I believe that it is a secret to an extent because it really depends on where you go for your teaching, who is teaching, and what history are you going to teach me? Because let's be honest, it's the same thing with African American history. African American history is an elective. Not saying that is an elective. It is not a mandatory course in any sense, unless you're going for anyway. Long story short, there was a switch. So when you hear Republicans going on and on and on like this, and I say that, it's the rich, it's dominantly white, it's the ones that have it's the ones that have the working party's ear. It's because, listen, if you look it up, I promise you, you would find it for yourself. It was even an instance, I believe was it in Ohio or was it in Iowa? It was a state, and they gave, and I watched the video. It gave the whole rundown about how the Republican Party again was pretty much ran by people of color and overturned and transitioned to not being that anymore due to that situation of, the Democratic class that was white supremacy at the time, because now you see that I just read about it, white supremacy at the time. They were able to get more working class members, more buy-in to it. And at that time, the working party, it was a lot more of the white constituents than it was black. And those people that were in that party, they helped overturn or overthrow or change the face of the Republican Party. So after you strip them of the Republican Party, you go over to this Democrat side where you're basically having to start over from the ground zero to refine it. That's what happened. So to see this divide, going back to what we were discussing way long ago, with the divide that potentially could occur if Trump were to actually go through with a patriot party, it's not far-fetched. If in history the way that that party was built and founded was truly on white supremacy with a working class party, that's what you have in that party now. That's what that new face stood for. Now, if it has some transformations because everybody wants to say that, time brings about a change, right now, that is still what I see. I see the vast majority in the Republican Party. They are very well to do for themselves. They are very much of the non-melanated community. That's the majority. The manipulation of the poor or class, the poorer class, or the not as wealthy class, that only have like certain standards, like here or there, that gives them a buy-in. Like you got me, at hello, like you got me at, pro-life, you got me at no same-sex marriage. Like it only takes a little bit to get the lower classes buy-in for them to keep that majority, and that's what they want to keep. So if they go against the grain of Trump, they're saying to go against Trump is to go for the democratic ideals. And right now, if it's the democratic ideals that they don't want to go for, which is those little like tidbits again, then yes, they are going to go with Trump, because it is no longer about, politics and just, oh, for the working class, and we're trying to, no, they're now doing stuff off of beliefs, your personal beliefs, that if somebody else is doing it, it doesn't affect you. I'm s- and I know some people feel away. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of stuff. I'm not necessarily saying that I would just jump at the thought of having an abortion. I don't want to. I am technically a pro-life person, but I also believe that a person should have the choice to do so. Now, somebody would say, "Oh, you all are just the same," and da da da. I just gave you a sound mind response. I believe in pro life. However, I do believe that a woman's body, she should have authority over what happens with her body. I would love to encourage her, but at the end of the day, that is something that she has to feel comfortable with doing. Does that mean that I'm saying I want her to go and kill children? For speaking of Marjorie, or whatever her name is, the conspiracy theorist, Republican that sat here and could say all this stuff saying that Democrats will want even maybe some live babies killed. Ma'am, pump your brakes. You are solely there by grace, the grace of your constituents, which at the same time, when it came down to another person, and I don't believe that she was of higher rank, but when she spoke, and she spoke to Trump supporters and specifically told them to watch themselves and to tread lightly or whatever, they wanted her gone. She was a threat. But you sat here and you said all of this, and you said that people deserve death and all of this, and you are still in your seat. Accept the grace and the privilege that you have. Because I haven't heard a Democrat yet say that they wouldn't even mind some children 6, 9 months in their mother's belly to be killed. Who does that? But you don't want anyone to believe you're a conspiracy theorist. You can't all of a sudden just renounce everything that you have been saying forever, all the way up until this point. Old Twitter, I don't even care about anybody talking about old Twitter stuff. Let's be quite frank here. Yes, it's old Twitter feeds, got that. But let's not forget, you're still saying some of this stuff. You are still very much saying some of this stuff. Current day. But you're willing to back up, unlike Trump. See, that's the difference between you and Trump, sweetie. Trump wasn't going to back down. You're moldable. They said we can hire your ass and we can fire you, and you jumped right in line. However, that does not change the fact that that is how you felt, that is what you voiced, and until I see her doing something like apologizing to that school shooting survivor personally up front and the parents, matter of fact, the school that he resided in, until I see some actual moves where I see her acting like a human being and not someone that's entitled to stay in a bubble of conspiracy theories because she has the privilege to do so, I am beyond over that. So over that. And I know that that was completely off topic, but this is what we have to go with. This is what we have to go with, y'all. I don't know if you want to use this, but I just thought that this was really interesting because I was still looking at the whole thing about the Republican Party and the air of the white supremacy either being in the House GOP or the Republican Party. I mean, hell, probably even in the Democrat, because we do have some Democrats that I'd be like, but of course, it's more heavily on the Republican side because of history, and the tradition in history kind of repeats itself. So some are still remaining. And I've seen, and just to make sure that I wasn't like going crazy, I wanted to make sure that I had some, things that were going on. So just time stamping different scenarios of where you get the air that Republicans may still have issues with having such a heavy influence of white supremacy or just racial injustice in general, and how it is refusing to shed light on that because of old values. Just a couple of things. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she made her statements about the House GOP as the legitimate white supremacist sympathizers. I guess that was the best way for her to say it without just flat out saying that white supremacy is within their party. The fact that Republicans in Congress did know about Trump not denouncing the Proud Boys, which of course people now are aware of who the Proud Boys are. Democracy or the White House mob, which side is the Republican Party on? That was put to question on The Guardian. It was a publication made February 3rd, 2021. So this isn't something that I'm just concocting in my head because I want to have my feelings about the Republican Party. Look up the history of the Republican Party and go all the way back to where it was first started by Black Republicans and how it transformed over time, because the Black Republicans were going against the Democratic Party, which at that point in time, the Democratic Party were the ones that still valued white supremacy. So over time, there was a switch. So now the Blacks were more dominant in the Democratic Party, and the people that valued white supremacy were more heavily on the Republican Party. Now, that's outside of just the traditional definition of the Republican and the Democratic Party. But again, I'm not trying to go all in detail with that because I know that you do have a point. And so I just wanted to take that moment while you were gathering things to make a point as to why I said what I said. It's not off of high emotions. It's not off of me being clouded by anger. It's just off of thinking back in history of what originated to how it transformed, and then the current events that we now have, all showing hints of concern, of wanting to investigate, of wanting to pretty much accuse the Republican Party of still showing favor towards white supremacy, which wouldn't be far fetched because that switch proves that those parties that were once Democratic that are now in the Republican Party, that's what they valued. So that's all I had to say on that. I'm gonna let you come back in. I just wanted to get that while you were taking a pause for the cause. Hope I didn't take too much time.
No, that's great. I will definitely use that. I had came back because I had just stayed on mute because you were talking.
I know I was just doing that because I knew since you were taking that pause, I wanted to put that in there in case you wanted to use it.
No, yeah, I'll probably definitely take that out and put that to a video for my channel. Thank you. Yeah, because I'll probably do that with both things. But let me take a beat so I know where the cut.
So that one can kind of be a more clean cut version of what I was like just spewing left and right yesterday. So you can kind of like delete that one and you can use that one.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay.